Howdy, Space Rangers, Captain Phoenix here. So, the fifth and final season of Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous just came out on Netflix. Now, when I remember this season was announced, I actually remember that Jurassic World Dominion was also coming out in June. And I'm like, oh, how funny, we'll gain two Jurassic World properties within a month of each other. And then when I watched this season, I found out why. It's because this movie was gonna. It's because this season was gonna tie into Dominion, and I kind of knew it. I kind of like felt at the back of my head going into this thing. I'm like, they're gonna tie into Dominion, aren't they? They're definitely gonna try and make some connections to Dominion. That's why it's coming out after Dominion and not before Dominion. And yeah, I was right. This season is it's interesting. I will say it's actually a really good season, one of the better ones of the show. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's start with the things I predicted would happen in this season that kind of season 4 alluded to. For one, I already predicted Kenji's dad was gonna be the villain of this season. There was just no way he was not gonna be the villain. I mean, he's the leader of, he's now like the CEO of Manticore or whatever. So of course he was gonna be the villain. I knew Kenji would turn on his team. He would be forced to pick between his dad and his team, which I was right. He does pick his dad, and at the end of the season, he does come back to his team. I knew they would bring some of the dinosaurs back, like Toro and Bumpy. I just didn't know how they would do it. So bringing them to this new island certainly was a bit of a surprise to me. But I did not predict that at all, so way to go. And I knew we were gonna tie into Dominion in some shape or form. And when Lewis Dodgson came on, I was surprised. Well, not surprised, I was like, oh, yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy I'm right. I knew I was right. But yeah, this season does a lot of things right. It does continue carrying the strengths of the previous seasons with, like, it's pretty good writing and stellar animation. I don't know what happened, but like it's like somewhere in between from like season 3 to now, the animation actually got a lot better. Though I can admit they got lazy in some parts. For example, the character designs are still there. Even if like these guys will tell you they went to shower or swim so many times, but their clothes will still be dirty, and they themselves are still dirty. Mind you, they wouldn't like fall into dirt or be running away from dinosaurs every episode. Yet they're always dirty, no matter how many times they shower. It's like, you know what? We already settled on these character designs. We're tired of using different ones. We're just gonna stick with this until the end of the show, and we're like, okay, we'll change up the character designs. And the dinosaurs, yeah, some of their movements and like the way they would like attack people were becoming all too similar. I could see like the repetitiveness in some of the animation flaws. So that's not perfect. However, I still do think the animation is interesting, and I do like looking at the dinosaurs. And obviously, we can't talk about a Jurassic World property or a Jurassic property without talking about the dinosaurs. This season actually suffers the same problem at the same time benefit that Dominion does, is that it gives us, I would argue, a bit too much dinosaur. There is a dinosaur in like every episode, and they do something. But like towards the end of this season, the dinosaurs are just like in everything, especially like the T Rexes, which is fine. I'm happy with seeing more T Rex. But the way like the main character Darius interacts with them, it's almost as if they view him as another like T Rex brother or something. And sometimes they'll defend him, sometimes they try to kill him. It's a very weird relationship they have. It's not. I get they're trying to like do the Owen Blue thing, but at least Owen and Blue, you can like at least tell there's some substance there because he raised Blue from like when she was a little dinosaur. Not chick. What do you call it? What do you call a baby raptor? Honestly, and at least like we had the same thing with Bumpy, right? Where Ben raised Bumpy from she was a little hatchling. So if they gave Darius the same thing, I could see that working. But the way he's like interacting with the T Rexes, I don't know, I found it a bit weird. However, as said, I do like the inclusion of like a lot of dinosaurs this season. The final dinosaur battle was also pretty cool. And even though this is the final season of the Camp Cretaceous series, if you're thinking this season will be more adult and you'll get to see like on-screen deaths, yeah, don't hold your breath. Every time someone gets eaten by a dinosaur, it's either off-screen or the screen cuts to black. I swear to God, it's so annoying. And that's like why I prefer the movies a bit more, because at least the movies show you people getting eaten. Here, whenever someone's eaten, it's always off-screen. And I get it's a kid's show. I understand it's a kid's show, and it will always be a kid's show. I just thought with this being the last season, they would at least up the ante a bit. And yes, this is 100% a kids show. I know I say all animation ain't for kids, but this is very much a kids show. Like the dinosaurs again, they're always like every time there's a chase scene, like with the dinosaurs and the kids, and and you know what's worse with the kids is that not only are they kids, but they're also main characters, meaning that they will not die. These guys are in like 12 layers of plot armor. Every time they're being chased by a dinosaur, for some reason the kids are always faster. The dinosaurs always bumping into objects or sliding or falling, and they always roar before they attack. And then when the kids are cornered, the dinosaurs will stop chasing them and instead start slowly like approaching them. It's very run-of-the-mill kids stuff. We see this in all the movies, especially again with the main characters and like in a slasher horror movie or whatever, where they're being chased by a predator or a killer. We see this happen all the time. And in this season, it happens actually very frequently. It's actually kind of annoying how frequently it happens in this season. However, the characters who do get eaten, it is fun to see them get eaten, albeit again always off screen. But I do love the implication that we can just assume the worst happened to them. It's a little cathartic not always seeing it, so you can just assume the worst rather than them just showing you and then just seeing a dinosaur eating them. I will say the biggest saving grace for this show, aside from like the animation, is the characters. They are what carry this show. The characters basically tell the story of the show, and I really like that. I really like how this is a character driven story. I think I mentioned this to you guys in one of my former reviews, but in the first review or when the first season came out, I thought they were gonna leave the island and the show would end there. It was gonna be like a limited series, just a bit of fun for us to watch, and it would tie into like Jurassic World, and then we'll get Fallen Kingdom and whatnot afterward. However, the first season actually ends with them stranded on the island, and I was really interested. I'm like, crap, they're on the island. What are they gonna do now? How are they gonna get out of this situation? And then we see them finally leave the island, like in season 3. In season 4, they come to this new island. And again, I really like the character progression, the way these guys essentially make the story. And basically at the end of this season, we kind of because it's a final season, we do kind of get not really flashbacks, but more of the characters like talking about how they were in season 1, how they were when they approached the island, and I really like that, them looking back on themselves. And you can really tell these are not the same characters from season 1. These are not the same characters we started the show with. They all went through their own development and they all grew in their own way. And I really do like that. They are not the same characters, and in the best way possible. Every like one of the main characters has matured on their own in this show, and it is so cool. And honestly, for a show like this, I would say that's a miracle. That's probably the biggest saving grace for this show. Because usually when it comes to like the Jurassic movies, for me, I don't care about the human characters. I hate how the movies always focus on the human characters and their story. I'm like, no, we come to these movies for dinosaurs. That's what we came for. Which is why I think the original Jurassic Park movies kind of did, where each movie it was like a different cast of humans. The first movie was the original cast. Second movie it was like Ian Malcolm and then a bunch of new characters. And then the third movie it was back to having Alan Grant, but then it was also just a bunch of different characters. With the Jurassic World movies, it's all like the same characters per movie, and it just like I want to see different perspectives. So the fact that this show could actually get me not just invested but caring about these characters up until the very end, where we get to see where I actually want to see more of them in the future. Yeah, it's cool. I really do think this show really did a good job with that, and I like how all of their stories ended. I'll get to that in a second, but I really like how all their stories ended and where they ended up. And for Netflix or to like greenlight not a season 6 but like a spin-off show, I would probably watch it. And of course, let's talk about the biggest task this show had to accomplish, being canon to the Jurassic series. Because as I said, this season was setting up Dominion. And it wasn't just this season. This entire show had to kind of relate to each and every one of the Jurassic movies, which is why, as I correctly guessed, this show had to come out after Dominion to explain some of the things that happened in Dominion. Because this show kind of was doing the same job Clone Wars was, where it exists in a canon universe, with coexisting with the other movies that are released in cinemas. And now this show, because it's canon, had to tie into the movies in some way, shape, or form. Season 1 tied into Jurassic World, or like the first episode we get to see the raptors, and then everything from episode 4 to 8 was like dealing with the Indoraptor. Season 3 tied into Fallen Kingdom, because it turns out that the opening of Fallen Kingdom, the whole Mosasaur thing, actually wasn't in the same year as the rest of the movie. The opening of Fallen Kingdom takes place 6 months after Jurassic World, and then the rest of the movie takes place like 3 years later. And so we get to see how the kids interact with that and how they've been living on the island for 6 months. And then season 5, as I mentioned, sets up Dominion with Lewis Dawson coming in, trying to get the dinosaur samples to build his place, which will now set up Dominion, which as of this show canonically takes place about 6.5 years from then. And as a tie to all these movies, I think it's really cool. I really do like the way they explain some of it, except for one scene. When Lewis Dawson found the Barbasol can in the sand, I straight up laughed. I actually paused the episode and I had a painful laugh. It was so dumb. It was dumb how the Barbasol can was in Dominion, and it was dumb how it is here in this show. This can should not have been found under any circumstances. First of all, this can was buried in the dust or the ground for like in the mud for like over 20 years. Someone died next to it, and they had a whole new park built over it. You're telling me when they were building the new park, they moved the car, they probably moved Neji's body, but they didn't find the can. And even if the can wasn't squished or buried under the foundation of the new park, that is some baloney. That is some bullcrap. It was dumb in the movie and it was dumb here. I really hated how Louis found the can. It was so dumb. He doesn't even need it. The dinosaur embryos in the can are expired. And like, he can't use the barbasol for anything. It was such a dumb thing in the show, and the way it was so forced in the episode, just so they could explain how it happened in Dominion, makes me feel like it was last minute. It was so painful. I actually had to pause the episode and laugh. But otherwise, I do think it tied into the movies pretty well, which leads to the end of the show. So the end of this show, specifically in the last episode, we get a 3-year time jump, or I guess 2.5 years if you want to take the 6 months into account. We get to see the characters and where they end up in during Fallen Kingdom. As I mentioned, this series is supposed to tie into all the movies, so most of it does take place in between Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom, and of course it ends where Fallen Kingdom ends, actually, when the dinosaurs get released into the real world. We get to see Darius has become a sort of TED talker. Kenji has probably taken up a job or two to keep the island afloat and to like pay to keep the dinosaurs alive on the Manticore Island. Ben decided to go visit the island every now and again. He's decided to become a more wild, rough and gruff guy. What's her name? Yaz decided to go to college in Texas, and what's her name again? Not the cowgirl. Sammy, that was it. Sammy went back to own her ranch, and of course, Brooklyn became a reporter. And it's funny how Brooklyn became a reporter because she was trying to dig up the story on the Lockwood residence with the whole clone and dinosaur thing. And as mentioned, the series ends with Darius looking out the window and finding a Brachiosaurus roaring in the distance, where we find out that the dinosaurs actually have escaped from Lockwood Manor, because it turns out Darius just happens to live near there. So of course the Brachiosaurus would come near his place. And that's where the series ends. And this is what I would say for if we were like to get a rest of the series. What I want, if we do get like a Camp Cretaceous season 6 or a spin-off or a sequel show, I want there to be I want the same cast of characters, because as I mentioned, I really got attached to these characters and I really like them. And what I would wish is that we got these characters in like a special or a movie or again a sequel series where we get to see them coexisting along with dinosaurs, because that's what Jurassic World Dominion was supposed to be. We were supposed to see how humans interacted with dinosaurs in the real world and how that kind of changed society forever. But of course, the movie lied and all that stuff happened in the background. So wouldn't it be cool if we got like a special, or as I mentioned, a spin-off series where we get to see all that background stuff in the show? We get to see how dinosaurs are like taking over the earth and finally joining, like coexisting with humans and normal animals alike, and we get to see it from these kids' point of views. We get to see them survive in this world of dinosaurs. They no longer have to escape from an island, because there's no island to escape from. Now they have to live in a world with these dinosaurs. I think that would be a really cool idea. The only problem is with a concept like that, there's not really a story you can tell, because with a concept like that, it feels so much more gradual. It's something that does have to happen on its own or leave up to interpretation. So whilst it would be cool to see a spin-off series or a movie or a special focused on that, I highly doubt they would make something like that to tell a story about, because as mentioned, there's not really a strong story you can tell there, which is why I don't fully blame Dominion for the story he told. I just blame it for lying to us about the story it was going to tell. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous Season 5. I think it was a good season. Not the best the show has given us, but definitely up there. Probably even my second favorite season. If I were to rank them, it would be Season 3 is my favorite, then Season 5, then Season 4, then 2, and then 1. 2 and 1 kind of alternate a bit, just because 2 is a bit more original in its story, but 1 does kind of tie into the movie. So really, it's like, pick your poison, honestly. Would you want one that ties into a movie and be like, oh, I know that thing? Or would you like one that's a bit more original but doesn't have that punch just yet? It's up to you. But yeah, Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, good show. Give it a watch if you got Netflix. It's fun for the kids. They'll like the dinosaurs in here. And I think it'll be a pretty cool way to introduce them to the Jurassic World movies. And then they'll be like, I know that thing. But yeah, overall, the series gets a 7 out of 10. Not amazing, but also not bad. It's far from the worst thing to come out this year. So give it a watch if you got the time. And I would advise, watch Dominion just before you watch this movie, because that's what I did. I watched like Jurassic World Dominion like 2 days before I watched this show, which is why I didn't do a review on Dominion. I was kind of too late to go to the cinemas. But I watched Dominion before I watched the show. And I watched the show like right after I watched Dominion, again like 2 days later. And seeing Dawson appear, I was actually kind of happy. I'm like, oh, wait, I know that guy. Or I guess Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple. Duk, duk, duk. But whatever. Anyways, guys, thank you so very much for watching. I have been Captain Phoenix. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and be part of the team. Thank you so very much for watching, and with that, I will see you in another universe.